Our first-time group leader ACIS webinar. I want to thank everyone for joining us. This webinar is intended to give you a bird's eye view, an insider perspective on what it's like to lead a trip with ACIS for the first time. Hang on one second. So I am Liz Reese. I have been doing the last few webinar series. I've been with ACIS for 13 years, and I work with our Academic Travel Advisor Network, which is our local network of retired group leaders and retired teachers, or sometimes they're still current group leaders. And I manage them and help them work with new teachers, just like Elspeth, who's joining us tonight. Also with me is Jenna Vinci. She is based here in our Boston office as well as me, and she is an international program manager for ACIS, and she's been with ACIS for
about 4 years.
Just about 4 years. Awesome. And we also have a special guest with us tonight, first-time group leader, Elspeth Fazier. She is from Connolly School of the Holy Child, and she just got back from her first ACIS trip with 25 students. She's a music and theater teacher, and we are going to hear from her tonight and find out all about what made her trip great.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to turn it over to Jen and Elspeth. They actually work together, which I think gives this a nice perspective on the whole process from beginning to end. I'm going to let them take it from here, and as you all know, any questions you have, you can just type right into the question box on your tab, your panel. Sorry, I don't know why I'm like at a loss for words right there. So just type any questions you have. We'll answer questions throughout the webinar, but I also will save more general ones for the end, but I promise we'll answer all of your questions tonight. Anything that comes up that you think would help the group to know, or anything you specifically need to know, please feel free to pass those questions along, and we'll answer all of them. All right, Jenna, I'm going to turn it over to you. Let's get started.
Okay, Elsa, so you just returned from your very first trip, and it was the Belle Italia, which is one of our most popular ones for people that don't know, the big three, Venice, Florence, and Rome. And was it everything that you were expecting it to be?
Yes, thank you, Jenna. It was absolutely incredible. I've been to Italy at least a dozen times, so I had very high expectations for the Belle Italia trip and for the students' first trip to Italy, and the tour went beyond my expectations. It was really a magical 9 days.
Good. What was the thing on it that surprised you the most throughout the trip?
I think what surprised me the most was how customized the trip felt and how flexible and accommodating our tour manager, Espen, was. He really customized our trip on a daily basis to make sure that our students were happy and that we were doing things that interest them. For example, in Florence, he had us visiting all the sites in the morning so that we had free time in the afternoon for some of our art students to go to the Uffizi gallery, which wasn't on our original itinerary. So he really catered it towards our students' interests, and it came out really well for us.
Good. What do you think, if you had to pick, what was the students' favorite part?
I think one of the things that was special for them was visiting the Vatican and St. Peter's Square. Coming from an all-girls Catholic school, this really fit in with their life and the curriculum at our school. One night, Espen actually, after dinner, guided us to the Vatican, to St. Peter's Square, to see it at night. That was on our first evening, and it was just incredible to see the students' reaction. So that was something very special for them. That was definitely a highlight, along with ACIS, and seeing the Basilica of San Francesco, and the evenings with the dinners and fun restaurants. There are many, many highlights for our students.
That's amazing. I'm sure you feel like you can go on for days about it.
I know, I could. I probably could talk for hours about just like the highlights of the trip.
What was a favorite part of the trip that surprised you that the students really loved?
I think one of the things I noticed was that the students were actually enjoying being off the grid, not being connected to their phones all day. So the lack of technology or Wi-Fi, not having that available, was actually a plus for them, and they really enjoyed that. Along with that, I would say our stop in Padua, which is a university town, they really enjoyed seeing what it was like in the daily life of Italian teenagers like them, and that was a less touristy city, so it really gave them the local vibe.
Oh, good. So you mentioned a bit about how Espen was so flexible and accommodating and really made the trip feel like it was your own. Can you speak a little bit about the rest of the working relationship that you had with Espen and what kind of additional, maybe educational qualities that they added to the whole trip?
Absolutely. Espen and I clicked right away. As a music and theater teacher, Espen had a musical background, but also he had such a diverse background and broad knowledge of absolutely every subject. So he worked really hard to make this trip our own, using his skills, and we had a really great working relationship. His background in history and the arts really helped him connect with the girls, and so they always had things to talk about. He could relate very well with the students, but also with myself and the other chaperones on the trip, so I thought that was especially important.
Awesome, awesome. So can you talk a little bit about the very first day of your trip, arrival day? Because sometimes on paper, people see, you get there, but nothing solid is planned for that day. And it looks, on paper, it might look a little bit empty, but that day always ends up being packed in reality. So can you tell me a little bit about what your group did on your first day in Italy?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. It's actually funny because that was the one day I was a little unsure about, wondering what are we going to do. And as soon as we got there, Espen took us to the most beautiful viewpoint in Rome, some public gardens that overlook the city. And so really the students had that wow factor. We've arrived in Rome, and look, this is unbelievable. So if anything, it felt like it was a bonus day for us because I really didn't expect to experience all of that upon arrival. And Espen was able to keep our energy up and take us around different neighborhoods throughout Rome. The Trevestere area was adorable with little cafes so that the girls could feel like they were roaming around on their own, but also in small piazzas. So it was very manageable and felt very safe to us. They could enjoy the long Italian meal to kind of fight the jet lag, and he really kept us going, which I think was the key to keeping everyone happy for the whole week, because the tone was set on that first day, and it was just, I don't know, nonstop, beautiful views, and also relaxation, but feeling like we had earned an extra day.
Okay, that's amazing. So over the whole trip, there's so much that goes into these trips. Regarding the logistical details, like transfers and your hotels and your meals, how did you feel like those were taken care of?
I felt like everything went so smoothly, especially for Italy, which I spent a lot of time there, and things don't always run so smoothly. I really couldn't believe it, and I think a lot of that had to do, the seamless transitions were our tour manager working, our bus driver was incredible, and all of the hotels we stayed at, everyone was so friendly and accommodating. So I think every step of the way worked so seamlessly together. It was really, really helpful. I actually really didn't notice. Usually you feel like you're in line or waiting around, and there really was very little waiting around.
Good. You gained so much more time that way.
Right, exactly.
All right. So your trip was amazing, but let's backtrack a little bit to the very beginning, which as of right now feels like so long ago. So when you were initially preparing for your trip, I mean, before you even decided to pick out an itinerary and everything, what was it that made you decide you wanted to travel with your students at all?
That's a good question. I travel a lot in the summer, and I actually teach music in Italy in the summer, and so the students have asked me for the last couple of years to take them to Italy. And so I thought that maybe with ACIS's help I could make this happen. I went to one of the roundtable events in Towson last spring, I believe. It was in April, and I met several staff members. I met Ariana and Julie along with our local rep in Washington, Judy Reif, and I was really inspired by them, and they really helped me gain the confidence to attempt a new trip at our school.
Amazing. And for those people listening that aren't familiar with what roundtables are, ACIS hosts a number of small events in local areas. So you may have heard of one near you, or you may someday hear of one near you, but they're small events staffed by ACIS members, and they are opportunities for you to network with your local teachers and just talk to your peers about education and travel and meet some of the ACIS staff. So keep your eye out for those. But Elka, what happened at that specific event that you attended that made you say, yes, I'm going to travel and I'm going to go with ACIS?
At that event, everything just felt so personalized. I felt like the staff members at ACIS really actually cared about my experience and the experience I wanted to give my students. They were treating me as I was already part of the ACIS family right away, and that was really gave me the confidence to pursue this. And every person on the team just gave me the impression that they really, truly cared, like it was a family business or something. And I actually went to one last night in Virginia, and it was also the same feeling, and it was really fun to meet new staff members and just realize what we're doing is important and that it's really a great company to work with.
Oh, good. Always nice to hear. So when you initially wanted to be the group leader, what was the thing that you maybe were most nervous about?
I think I was most nervous about the responsibility of starting a new trip at our school and worrying about what if it failed, what if there weren't enough students to sign up for it. I really had no idea, even though I know the girls wanted to go. I didn't know who would actually follow through with that.
Mm-hmm.
I also was a chaperone on the ACIS trip the previous year, and I just wasn't sure if I was ready to handle the responsibility of moving up to group leader. So that was probably what I was most nervous about, just the pre-trip and on-the-trip responsibility.
Yeah, definitely common concerns. And now that your trip is over and you're back, how do you feel about those things that you were initially nervous about?
I feel so different. I honestly can't imagine going back to the chaperone position now after being group leader. I just had so much fun being kind of the point person and the one that was making some of the decisions and doing the research and just kind of being the extra guide or the go-to person for our students. I was so pleased with how it went, and it was a lot less paperwork and I guess pre-trip work than I had expected.
Yeah. Yeah, it can seem like a daunting task, but
yeah, it seems like as a teacher you don't want to take on anything else, but really it was so easy.
Good. And when you decided that you wanted to take a trip, how did you find that initial process of, picking out your itinerary and getting everything prepared to present to your students for the first time?
So I knew I wanted to go to Italy, and I just was overwhelmed by the incredible choices. Everything looked incredible. But after looking through the different trips, I found one that I thought would be worth the investment for our parents specifically, and Ariana and you really helped with the details of the trip to make sure that what we were presenting to the parents and the students was the best fit for them.
Good. And for those people listening in, as a first-time group leader, Elspeth started out working with my colleague Ariana, who's an international program consultant. And she's the one who helps you pick your itinerary, get your students recruited, and then I jump in as the international program manager to handle more of the logistical side. So from a faraway standpoint, working with two different people at points in the trip can seem a little scary, but Elspeth, how did you find that process of working with Ariana and then transitioning over to myself? Because for me, it feels like we've been working together forever.
I know, me too. And the funny thing is I really don't remember when we switched over. It just seemed like I had known both of you for so long that it was just so seamless every step of the way. So the transition didn't even really faze me. So I just couldn't have been easier.
Good, excellent.
That was the plan.
Yeah.
Well, it definitely worked because I can't even remember when it switched over.
Good. And at the time that you switched, like I said, we had already had your itinerary chosen. You had students registered for the trip, so I guess essentially the hard part was already taken care of. And now looking back, it's already been a year since we made that transition. How would you say your level of comfort has changed since then?
I think on a scale of 1 to 10, I went from being a 7 with the nervousness to now beyond 10 because I'm just so thrilled with the experience my students had, and they're still glowing, and I think I really saw the change it made, the impact it made on their lives. So like that, my level of comfort is just, I can't even speak to it because I'm still impressed with how positive this experience was.
Awesome. So at this point, your students are signed up, your itinerary is picked out, and now we enter the planning phase. What helpful tools did ACIS provide you with?
There are a lot of valuable tools on the website. I found that reading reviews of the tours, reading helpful hints on the My Account page, using the group leader manual that was sent to me was very helpful for behavior guidelines and to help with policies and procedures and based on what you wanted to do with your students. And I asked Jenna, well, I asked you a million questions, I think. So that was certainly, having your phone number was a very, yeah, having your phone number and email was a very valuable tool. So, and also the local rep, Judy, was really helpful because I was nervous about the parent meeting. This is my first one running, and so she really assisted, gave me confidence to do that and answered some questions that I had. It was really great.
Good. So now that you've gone through it your first time through, what would you do differently next time?
I think I would have used the My Account page that the group leader has access to on the ACIS website. There's so many valuable things there. I don't think I used it quite enough to contact the group. I think I would set up more of a routine check-in, like make sure you're checking that account page for the students, and I would update it more. I think
you can contact your students right from that page. You can send messages to parents, all kinds of things.
Right, all of that. Exactly. Instead of like going through our school email system, I definitely would have started from the beginning so that was the routine. I didn't really quite use it as much until about 2 months before, but I would definitely start using that as soon as the trip was set. And then the other thing, I think I would incorporate more social media. And students were off the grid during the day, but you know, in the evening they like to check their picture, look at their pictures, post on social media sites, and ACIS already has all of that set up. And I was learning about that as we went, but I think next time I would definitely set up a system for our trip so that we could connect with our school back home, with the parents, with our friends, so that it was kind of another bonding experience for our students.
Yeah, definitely. And ACIS has tons of social media outlets for you to do that into: Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, Twitter. I mean, you name it, we got it. So a good way to connect with both people at home, friends at home, and you know, the company, and who knows, your picture could end up on the cover of the catalog.
Oh, wow. Yeah, we had a couple on the blog, and the girls were so excited. So it's funny. All of a sudden, I was like, oh, we should have done more of that because it was really fun.
Yeah. And now, initially, sometimes this is a concern for some people, others not so much, but what do you have to do to get approval with your school to make the trip happen?
So right now, I presented a trip proposal to our Dean of Student Life, but before I had done that, I made sure that there was at least enough student interest to start with before really committing to this trip, just so that I didn't present it with few students. So I really got the word out and found out that this was a popular trip for our students, and so there was really no issue getting it approved because the students had shown the interest in it.
Good, good. Very lucky to have such an easy process. And
very lucky. I think at private school that's the benefit of there's some hoops that we don't have to go through.
Good. And this next point I have is probably one of the favorite things I have that you have ever told me about. And the period between when students sign up to take the trip and when the trip actually happens is so important. You need to keep them interested. You need to keep them engaged. So what did you do to make that happen?
I worked really hard planning lessons leading up to the trip, because not only was this an investment for me as a teacher, it was an investment for all 25 of the students and the 3 chaperones. So I really wanted them to feel like this wasn't just a week, wasn't a 9-day adventure. It was like a 6-month learning process. And we had probably 1 or 2 meetings a month, so that the students felt like, you know, they saved up money for their trip, or their parents contributed. They really felt like this was worth it. So I had guest teachers come in from different departments of our faculty. We had lessons in art history, in Roman history, in Italian culture, in music. I had some of my Italian friends come in and teach language classes 3 or 4 times, so that the girls felt confident with their basic Italian, since it wasn't something we offered at our school regularly. We also had a few closer to the trip. We discussed travel tips and cultural differences, and just how to be more of a global citizen, so that they knew what to expect, and that we gave them the tools to succeed starting from day 1, not after 8 days, so that we could really enter and be proud of our group and how we behaved when we were there, so that we weren't just tourists.
Good. Amazing. Well, now that it's all over, what is next for you? Do you plan to travel again?
Yeah, so I feel like as soon as we got off the plane, the juniors that will return next year, like, where are we going next year? So, oh, goodness. And the seniors are already really sad that they're not going to be able to go on it with us again. But I said, you never know. But I'm planning a trip to Germany and Austria called the Archdukes and Emperors Tour. This is a different part of Europe that our students, I guess, might not necessarily be exposed to with their families, but they learn about all of these countries, the history in our curriculum. So I felt like with combining history, arts, and religion again, which seemed to work very well for Italy, I thought that this was a really good tour to work with other teachers that I work with on. And we just had our first sign-up, actually, for this 2005 trip. I'm very excited. I think, actually, we have a couple now after today.
You do.
But my first one was our student ambassador, and she's a student who really kind of pushed some of her colleagues, or her classmates, excuse me, who were a little bit anxious about traveling, and got them to come on the Italy trip, and is getting them to come on this one too. It's really exciting to see that.
Good. And the timing could not have been more perfect. You did that in the best way possible. As soon as you got back from your first trip, using that energy to get the students ready for the next time around, in combination with your student ambassador, who, I mean, there's no better means of advertising to a student than their friends. So couldn't have been done better. And the student ambassador, once you reach a certain number of people, they benefit because they get a scholarship and entered into a raffle for a free trip, along with helping you out with doing some of the groundwork. So it is an amazing tool for recruitment. And since we're wrapping up here, is there anything that you say we haven't touched on already, that if you had a friend who told you they wanted to lead an educational tour, what would you say to them?
I think the most important thing is just making the students feel as invested as you are as the leader, by making them an active part of the entire process, from planning through departure, and even while you're experiencing the trip. I think that's just such an important part about this experience. I think also being very specific with your ACIS rep about what your needs your students have, and what, as a group leader, your expectations are, because they really are, you guys are so accommodating and make everything happen that's possible. And so I think the more open the group leader or the school is, the better the trip is for everyone. And that really showed with our students, because we're a Catholic girls' school, so our difference, you know, our needs might be very different from a larger public school or something like that. For example, I really wanted our students to go to a concert one evening. We had a lot of music students, and ACIS helped make that happen in Florence. And another one of my favorite places in Rome was a beautiful viewpoint, and right away our tour manager made that happen. So it's those little things that really made a difference, and felt like ACIS cared about what we wanted out of the trip, and it wasn't just like what was in the book or on the itinerary. It was all the little details that made everything so special. So that's probably like the best advice I could think of.
Good. Well, we had a great year together. I'm excited to do it again next year.
I know. I can't wait.
And I guess that kind of wraps it up for everything we had to talk about, and we will now open up to some questions.
Okay.
All right, so the first question was from Deborah Newman, and she was asking how you stayed connected to parents while you were overseas.
That's a good question. So in terms of social media or emergency contact, was it in just daily contact?
She didn't specify.
Okay. I think the students were probably posting pictures and emailing their parents in the evenings because they were pretty off the grid during the day because there was no Wi-Fi access, which was a great thing. So they were probably in the evenings checking in with their parents on their mobile devices because even if they didn't pay for a data package or a plan, they could still use their devices with the Wi-Fi that was available in the hotels. So that was pretty easy. We were posting a few things on our trip stream, just very rarely through our tour manager, so they could see that. We had some pictures up. And in terms of contact, they always had the chaperones' information available. It was on email or phone 24 hours a day. So yeah. In terms of being accessible, that was how that worked.
Yeah, and ACIS has access to all of your emergency contact information if it were a situation like that, too.
Right.
All right, cool. Another question, what did you do during free time? And was Espen helpful with free time, or were you on your own?
Espen was very helpful in free time. Almost every time that we did have that, he helped the girls pick out what they wanted to do. So we really met in smaller groups because they had to stay in groups of 4. And so one group would go to an art gallery, one group would go shopping, one group would go to a basilica. So he really helped to manage that so that even though it was free time, it was still guided in a way. So the girls weren't wandering around these cities. They really had his help in finding what they wanted to do. And in every city, we had probably an afternoon of free time where we could do specific things that we wanted to do.
Good.
I'm trying to think I know I said in Florence, our art students got to go to some extra art galleries, so that was a nice surprise. And in Rome, I took our music students to a musical instrument museum. Actually, our tour guide, who we had at the David in Florence, also took us to a music museum, so it was really nice.
Cool. All right, so we have a question about your own phone. So what did you do with your cell phone? Someone's asking because they want to bring their cell phone, but they're worried about the charges, the additional fees to have your phone overseas.
Right.
What did you do?
So I have an iPhone with Verizon, and I think with almost all carriers now, you can pay a flat rate fee that's a data package. So I, for $25, purchased, I can't remember how many gigabytes it was, but it's enough to last you a week as long as you're not really like browsing Facebook or Instagram, as long as you're using it just to check your email or text or things like that. If you're not uploading things outside of the Wi-Fi, you really could last at least a week on $25 of a data package. So that way I could turn it on and off. You put it in airplane mode, although when I'm a group leader, I don't usually put it in airplane mode because you can't receive phone calls. But as long as you have your data turned off, you can still receive phone calls and text messages so that it's not eating up that charge and you won't get charged again.
Exactly. The crazy charges happen when you have data roaming on and all of a sudden, your email that's linked to your iPhone loads all those emails in. That's what costs, believe me, it's happened to me and my husband many, many times. So the other option that you can do is actually go on an international plan just for 1 month. And I've done that before too. So you just change your plan to an international plan for 1 month, and do what you said, don't have the data on, and then when you come back, you just cancel it. So you can do that as well.
Right, and also if you don't have a global compatible phone, I think some of them aren't. You can, in the past, not on this trip, but in the past I've rented a phone, so you can for like $10, you can rent a global compatible phone to take on the trip that would have the same phone number you have.
Yes. All right, someone asked about the food. What did the kids think of the food?
They absolutely loved it. They couldn't get enough. And what was really great was that every menu was different. So every night we were having different cuisine, and it was all local, so they really got to experience 3 different types of Italian cuisine. So that was really special.
All right, a few more questions about while you were overseas, and then there was another question about getting ready for the trip. So what did you guys, this is a two-parter. What did you guys do at night with the girls, and what were the bus rides like? Were the kids bored or active on the bus? So that's a two-parter.
Okay. The evenings were pretty early, actually. We kind of set that up early, before the trip because we really wanted them to experience the full day and have energy. So we really encouraged them to try to get to bed at a reasonable time. So we weren't staying out that late. I'd say after dinner every night we would take a little stroll, a passeggiata, as they say in Italian, like a stroll across the city, the town, even just in one piazza, just to enjoy the people watching and the local scene. But every night I'd say we just had a little stroll to get some gelato after dinner on the way back to the hotel. One evening we went to a concert, but other than that, by 9:30, 10 o'clock, you're pretty worn out after walking around all day. And I encouraged them to get up and enjoy breakfast so that it wasn't just like rushed to the bus. And also with the bus, we actually had a really fun time on the bus. It was a couple hours in between each cities, and it was kind of a nice time for downtime. Espen, our tour manager, would kind of prep us for the next city. So it was a really relaxing way to listen, but also look out the window. It was absolutely beautiful. He used to call it that, our entertainment, our TV screens, our giant windows. So we listened to music, Italian music. Our bus driver was really into traditional Italian music. So it's really, I don't know, the bus experience did not seem to be at all negative for our students. They really seemed to enjoy it.
I feel like most kids like being on a bus. I don't know.
Yeah.
I remember being a kid and like being on a bus and it being exciting. Now I get on a bus and I think, I'm commuting.
I know.
It's different.
It's totally different. Exactly.
Totally different ball game.
Yeah.
Right. So we had another question about someone asked if, they said, so we can have a local experienced group leader come to do our meeting. So I'm going to take this one just to say that, yes, we have academic travel advisors across the country. I think right now we have about 45 of them set up across the country. But beyond that, we have tons of experienced group leaders who would love to be a mentor to you, to work with you. Even if you don't have someone locally, they would love to support you, share their experiences with you, and your international program consultant or international program manager can definitely connect you with other teachers who've traveled with ACIS, who have great tried and true experienced activities to do with the kids and ways to get them engaged, and so much wonderful content for you. And we will definitely connect you with them. That said, we can always come to your meeting. Most people don't ask. So if you want someone there or you wish you had an ACIS representative at your meeting, ask us. We are more than happy to come and be there to support you in person. If we can't be there in person, we can Skype in. I mean, I've heard people in the office Skyping into meetings. And, back in the day, I've been here for 13 years, I used to be available by phone. I mean, I would just answer questions via phone. The teacher would ask me a question, and I would give her the answer, and then she'd tell the answer to the parents and the students. It was, does not seem very technologically advanced now, but, it works. We'll be there for you. I mean, I guess that's the message we really want you to take home from from this that, you know, when you're overseas, when you're planning, when you're just even thinking about this and you need ideas on how this is going to work and sort of a perspective on what this year of planning or year and a half of planning is going to be like, we want to give that to you. And that really was the purpose of tonight, was for Elspeth to share, you know, that from the inception, I'm going to have a trip and I'm going to do this, to coming back and saying, oh my gosh, I'm going to do this every year. You know, that's what we wanted to convey to you, that it's not just setting up a trip. You're building a travel program at your school. You're building a legacy, your legacy. This can be part of your career. And Elspeth, thank you so much for sharing that with us, because I really feel like that is the message you conveyed.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you.
And Jenna, thank you so much.
Thank you both.
Oh, we do have a couple more questions. I just want to, let's grab these last two questions and then we'll close up. So how did you handle exchanging money? Did you have kids exchanging money, dollars?
Yeah, actually, and I didn't touch on that, but our Espen, our tour manager, really helped with that because it can be a little bit tricky. He really made sure that all the girls had a chance to go to the ATM, the cash machine, and he could guide them if there was a problem, or go into a bank if there was an issue. So that was something they were a little nervous about, but then with his guidance, it was really simple. We actually had a couple problems with a couple credit cards, but he, you know, sorted it out at the bank. So, but a lot of them we encouraged to bring over about 50 euros or so, just a little bit of cash. Even bringing over dollars sometimes just as a backup in case your cards don't work is helpful. But overall, it really wasn't a problem. Nowadays, I feel like the things are easier to handle in foreign countries.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think it's gotten a lot easier now with ATM cards working everywhere.
Right, right.
You know,
you just have to call ahead of time. Yeah.
Right. You just have to let them know you're going to be overseas. Okay, one more question was, what are some typical questions parents ask at the parent meeting? And I'm pretty sure we have in our parent section on the website a frequently asked questions
We do, yep.
tab. But I think generally, just from my perspective, parents are mostly concerned about safety, about money.
Safety and the stuff that we just covered, cell phones,
yes.
Exchanging money.
Yeah.
Safety is a big one, and just because they're letting their children go overseas without them, so
right.
Of course it's something that all parents would worry about, but they ask a lot about how free time is structured as well.
Mm-hmm. Elspeth, do you have any additions to that?
I was actually surprised. I think I had I didn't have as many questions as I expected, but yeah, it was mostly about the money and the phones and safety, I'd say. And but a lot of the parents were also just asking more specifically where are we going, because they wanted to live vicariously through us. So
I think
funny.
at a parent meeting, they're really there to see you, right? And
yeah,
to see who is
exactly.
this person. Can I trust this person who's taking my child? You know, it's just
yeah.
like anything. They want to meet you, and so it really is an opportunity to tell your story and tell them why you're taking their students overseas and why you are the right person for the job.
Exactly.
So
just reassuring them that. Yeah. Exactly. And I have to say that the group leader manual helped with, I think, almost all the questions that they had. So I made sure that all the chaperones had that as well. I think I asked Jenna to send extra copies of that,
yep.
So that we all had that, so that if I, didn't get to an answer, my chaperones could also help. So that was really valuable tool for that.
Good. All right. Well, thank you so much. We won't keep anybody any longer, but this was wonderful. We thank you all for joining us. I hope that we are talking to you next year at this time about your first ACIS trip. So thanks so much for coming, and thanks, Elspeth.
Thank you.
And Jenna.
Thank you for listening.
All right. Have a great night, everyone. Thanks.